Welcome back, Leanaholics. I'm your host, Dr. Luke. Today, we're going to be talking about the failure modes and effects analysis. The failure modes and effects analysis is a great tool for helping you poke holes in your own plan. I know that doesn't sound like fun, but it's a risk analysis tool that really shows us what could go wrong in these potential solutions. The failure modes and effects analysis does have other uses. Those will be for other videos, but in this particular instance, when we're in the analyze phase and we're solutioning, after we've done our 5 whys analysis, looking for our root cause, after we've done our root cause analysis, we move on to our benefits and efforts, or a similar tool. So we have an initial discussion about what's the benefit versus effort of implementing it. See that video if you haven't watched it yet. Now we want to take it to the next step and say, all right, so on that benefits and efforts, let's say we had 20 solutions and we narrowed it down to these top 5 and we think this is what we're going to be doing. Well, let's take those over to the failure modes and effects analysis and poke holes in them and say, well, if we do this solution, what can go wrong? What's the potential failure point? So for instance, we're all familiar with writing our initials many times on documents. What if we remove the need to write initials completely? Okay, well, what's the potential failure mode? You'd have an incomplete field. All right, well, what are the potential effects, right? You see them kind of listed up top, or you can come up with whatever your organization wants, but efficiency, control, monetary might be an issue because there's rework in there. All right, so then we move on to the severity of impact. The severity impact is numerical, generally on a scale of 1 to 10. And it says, okay, if this happens, how severe is this? Is this really bad, or is this failure mode not that bad? If it's data and they just have to go back and get an initial, that's fine. But if I miss the initial, if this is something that's like against a law or something and I miss the initial and I ended up with that data entry error, that could be huge. Maybe there's some law, rule, or regulation from Congress or the National Credit Union Association or whatever it is, but that's really severe if that happens. Okay, that's 1 to 10. Well, what's the potential cause of the failure mode? So what would make us have an incomplete field? Well, there's human error or whatever it will be. What's the probability of occurrence? Meaning how likely is it, or how often is it to occur? Do we think if we remove initials, this particular failure mode is going to happen daily, weekly, monthly, maybe once a year? I don't know, whatever you're going to put there, but it goes again, scale 1 to 10. And then current controls are what's in place right now to either identify or catch or prevent this failure mode from ever even happening. And maybe you have QA in place, maybe you have QC in place, whatever it may be, or maybe you don't have anything in this process for you. You'll just annotate that what current controls right now, not that we want to put into place, but what's actually there to catch this. The reason is the next column says lack of detectability, and the detectability says how hard is it to identify. So if we have an incomplete field in there because we remove the initials, how hard is that to detect? Well, if we have a quality check at the end, somebody's probably going to catch it, right? So maybe we're in the somewhere to 5 to 7 range. But there are things, I'll give you an example like identity theft, where they stole all your identification and there's just nothing the bank or credit union or whatever could do about it because they gave all the correct information and stuff. How detectable is that? Well, with every control in place that they have at any given bank, that's a nightmare to happen, but it's a lack of detectability of 10. That's extremely hard to detect, and you really can't until the customer calls in and says, hey, I had $20,000 in the bank and now I don't have a penny to my name, right? That's what we mean by how hard is this to detect. Is it just gonna slip on by, or can we catch it in a quality check? Or is it something that there's a red flag in the system where if we didn't put the initials in, bam, the red flag comes up and says, hey, you can't move on, right? So that's lack of detectability. And that together is going to give you your risk priority number and tell you, so after benefits and efforts, it's going to tell you now which ones of these have the highest potential for failure or the biggest impact if something fails. So again, it's another way to scrub those solutions or the potential solutions before you go to implement them. And then you can put some sort of risk mitigation strategy into place. And when you mitigate the risk of it, at a bare minimum, you've thought through it and you've had the conversation and you understand that this could happen and you've had the active discussion with your leadership and the rest of your team. So the failure modes and effects analysis is a way to poke holes in our plans. With Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will, right? Let's try to get out in front of it, and that's what the FMEA will help you to do. Hope this helps fill out your FMEA moving forward. Hope to see you in the classroom.